And say, yes, I remember the time when we let you down and we've changed. What's your brand? Does your business have a brand? You know, for many businesses, branding is something that either they focus on it a lot or they see it as just being something that they got a logo done and they use it all the time, and that's the extent of their brand. And neither of those things are true. In reality, our businesses have a brand, and a brand is the way in which others see that business. They interact with that brand the way that we interact with people. So what is the personality of that brand? What do they represent in the world? What have they done? What's their history? And what's their vision and their future? And what do they stand for? These are all elements that are really essential for every business to be thinking about. And often when we're working with organizations on retelling their brand story, what we find is that there is a desire to throw everything out and let's start new. And that couldn't be a bigger mistake, because in reality, when we think about the brand of any company, who they were is who we love. It's what we expect. It's what we want to know them as. And it's okay for them to change their brand and to change their story, but we want to know that brand still has some of those elements. When we make the decision to move away from a specific brand, it's often because they didn't live up to what they said they were going to be. And we made a choice to move away from them because they were no longer doing that. And yet, in a rebrand situation, when a company is going through that, it's really important to go back to some of those earlier claims. Our employees, our stakeholders, our customers all want to know that we know and respect the history we have, because we created connections with all of those groups in some way. And we want to continue those connections and grow them, and not just simply throwing it all away. Your brand story is essential. And when you're changing it, think about it as the difference between doing a facelift, where suddenly everything is very stretched and tightened and we look 20 years younger but unrecognizable to the people around us, versus a tune-up, where you've refined yourself a little bit and you still look exactly like yourself, except refreshed and better, maybe elevated a little bit. People can't quite put their finger on it, but they know it's you, but you just seemed more relaxed. So when we think about our brands and our brand stories, we want that tune-up, not the facelift that makes us unrecognizable. So our history is important. Like when we do a facelift, what happens? We erase all of those character lines that make us who we are, that they were the many stories that we told. But whatever it is, you know, facelifts erase all of that. And we look in our face and we don't see the stories anymore. So when you think about your brand, if you erase the stories from your brand that made you who you are, even if they're difficult stories, your audience doesn't know you. You can own those stories with a tune-up. You can allow yourself to step into it and say, yes, I remember the time when we let you down and we've changed. Here's where our commitment is now. And that brand story bridges from the what wasn't wanted to what is wanted. And when told with authenticity and with authority, you own it. Your audience wants to know more. They lean in. And that's the difference between choosing to erase your history with a facelift or owning your history and choosing to do a tune-up on that brand through a brand story. And your brand story is the connector. And I want you to think about any great movie that you really love. And I want you to think about the storyline of that movie. What happens? Does any story start exactly where the protagonist is and then go forward and never give us any backstory on that protagonist or on the situation? Of course not. We need to know more about that protagonist. We need to understand what got them into the situation they're in. We need to understand what their history was so we can connect with them. And so when we do story finding programs with our clients, that's the first thing we want to do is we want to understand their history. We want to understand the storyline that we're going to use to build out that new brand story. Because when we think about rebranding an entire organization, the history is as essential as the future and the vision. But let me just talk for a moment about that future and about that vision. Because as much as our history is important, we also now need to know where we're going. What is the purpose of your brand? What are you contributing to that's bigger than that company? Every company has a purpose. You're fulfilling the need of your audience. Maybe you're a hard goods product company and you've got products that meet the needs of the customers. And that's important because you're making that customer's life better in some way. And maybe as that organization, you're not just doing it one product at a time, but you're actually contributing at a bigger level to a societal cause. Maybe you support education or whatever it is that you're contributing to beyond the development of your brand. Those are all the pieces of your vision and your future that come into that fulfillment with the consumer and with your employees as well. Because knowing your history and knowing your vision are the two key pieces to building a brand story that connects you so that people want to work with you, work for you, buy from you, support your cause, and see you succeed into the future. We live in a world that is undergoing massive, massive change right now. And it's sometimes hard to know where the goalposts are. But when we look to our history, it allows us to reconnect with what brought us into this world in the first place. And when we look to the future and what we believe in and what we believe to be true for our brand, we can focus our employees on the purpose and we can focus on achieving that purpose together. It gives us a common place to connect. And it allows us to do that same thing with our customers. They can see that we are focused on solving their problems and on solving the problems that actually also happen in our world. So know your future, know your history, bring those things together. Tell your brand's story through the lens of the person that brand is now and who they're growing into becoming. It's an evolution, not a revolution. I hope that was helpful. We do a lot of work with brands, helping them to redefine who they are, creating that evolution using their past and helping them to define that future, which is not so far away. Make sure that you click like if you found value in this video and subscribe to my channel. I can't wait to see you in our next video. Check it out right here.